Assalamu alaikum everyone again. My name is Sumaya Ahmed and welcome to the Labour of Love talk, where I'm going to be speaking about my transition going from midwifery to UX design. So I just want to start off with this ayah from the Quran, which is they plan and Allah plans and Allah is the best of planners. Mainly because I think maybe all of you guys have probably experienced this in life, living. Life can be quite traumatic and it can be a lot. And I think this ayah best represents the experience that I had going from that journey. Let's go to the next slide. A little bit about me. I am 26 years old. I'm the eldest of 6 girls in my family, alhamdulillah. Growing up, I absolutely despised it. However, now I love having sisters so much and I wouldn't change it for the world. I also, like I mentioned, used to be a midwife. And being the eldest in my family, of course, there was a lot of pressure, of course. So if you go to the next slide. So I was the eldest in the family, first to go to university as well. So you can imagine my parents definitely want me to study something really, really good. And I was quite good at sciences, so they wanted me to do something healthcare related. And even though I love sciences, I was 18, I still didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. So I decided to do midwifery, just because they gave me a place. I'm joking. Actually, I remember the first interview that I had, the lady asked me, so Sumaya, why do you want to be a midwife? And I remember just saying, I just really like kids. I like kids. And when I think back to it now, in the 3 years, I can probably count on one hand the amount of kids I actually saw. So I know that it was definitely God's will for me to actually get that job in the first place. So if you go to the next slide, straight away, I was in for a rude awakening. Midwifery is very difficult, unfortunately. And I was subjected to a lot of interesting comments. I'm sure some of us hijabis here have been asked that question before. Do you sleep with that on? The answer is no. I remember when I started, it was a very difficult course. You learn in 3 years, you do a placement year, you work 37.5 hours, you do 12.5 hour shifts, working nights and days. And anyone who's been an NHS student knows the hierarchy that you live at when you're a student. You are the bottom of the food chain, unfortunately. And I was also told constantly that I was too young to do the course as well. So all of that trauma, after 3 years, alhamdulillah, I was able to graduate in 2020. You go to the next slide. But you can see here, when I graduated, it was still a bit of a dark place. I convinced myself that even though I had finished the last 3 years and I'd worked so hard, I still needed to actually work in that field. Anyone who's done nursing knows that there's not really any other route you can kind of take. You have to either be a nurse or a midwife. And I convinced myself to the point where I even actually worked really hard to get a job at my dream hospital, which was the hospital I was born in. And I told myself, it'll be a full circle moment, it'll be perfect. And I actually did have the interview, well, I got to the interview, but I didn't go in the room and I couldn't bring myself to go to the room. And that was my final straw that made me realize, actually, this isn't the right career for me. I'm not happy here. And that's when I made the pivotal decision to leave midwifery. So if you go to the next slide, as you can see, I found freedom and I left midwifery. I then moved to Cardiff and did a master's in computer science. Just because I thought that was the only way I could really get into the tech world. I think many people think that you can only be a software engineer. And it was 2021. I could have done a lot more research, maybe checked a few things, but I decided to move and spend lots of money on a master's. And as soon as I started the master's, I remember getting into coding and I was like, yeah, you go to the next slide. Realized it wasn't for me. It was an error. I didn't enjoy coding at all. I liked the problem-solving aspect of things. I liked the fact that I could be creative, but at the same time, I just felt like it was a lot, to be honest. And I had to learn in 3 years of a master, everything that people learn usually in a computer science degree for 3 years in 1 year. So yeah, that wasn't it for me. And then in my final year, I had a module called human-centric interaction. And that's when I learned about the world of UX design. It combined the love of creativity and problem solving that I really enjoyed. I also really liked art as well, so it was perfect for me at the time. It's so funny though that I went into UX design because out of all the subjects that I was good at, art and ICT are the 2 subjects I failed in at GCSE, and I would say are the most relevant to my current career. So yeah. What user experience design is? Currently, I'm a user experience designer at Just Eat Takeaway. I've been a designer there for around 9 months. I really like my job. So if you go to the next slide, that's Just Eat Takeaway. And then, so what does a UX designer mean? What does a UX? No, it's perfect. Don't worry, you're doing great. What is a UX designer? Just to give you guys some context, I work on creating meaningful products for customers, such as websites, improving on the app, basically. And I work day to day with engineers, product managers, I work with other designers, and many other professionals. And I really love my job, actually, and I have amazing colleagues who are here to support me today. So thank you, guys. If you go to the next slide. So this segment now, I'm going to be speaking about some tips for anyone who's interested in pivoting to UX design. Is anyone here interested? If anyone has to put hands up? Oh, quite a few people, nice, okay. This is just a journey that I took. It did take me quite a while. I don't want to disrespect UX design and say that you can just be a designer quickly, because there are some steps that you take. It took me a full year, I would say, to actually make that change after finishing my master's degree. So if you go to the next slide, and then the next one. The first thing I would say is to work so hard on designing. Like, I was quite lucky. I know a lot of people don't have the luxury of being able to just spend most of their time just designing. I had a part-time job and I worked from home, and I just spent a lot of time going on Figma and using different design tools, and constantly like designing, basically. I think Adil mentioned that he hates TikTok. I love TikTok. So I was constantly on TikTok, and to the point my algorithm was just TikTok related. I saw this design trend that was 100 days of design, where I was able to basically try a new design tool every single day. And I basically added that to my portfolio, and I definitely think it helped my chances of getting a new role. And if you go to the next slide. I also became somewhat of an investigator. Some people might call it a stalker, I don't know. But what I did is I looked at other designers and what they did. I looked at how they presented their portfolios, how they presented their projects. I looked at their LinkedIn profiles. I even recommend considering to reach out to them as well. Just because you never know who you're going to message, you never know who can help you. I know anyone who messages me on LinkedIn, even though I don't reply very quickly, I try my best, because I know this time last year, I was the one messaging people on LinkedIn asking them for help. If you go to the next slide. I also recommend you familiarize yourself with the tools that you need to actually work in UX design. I looked at so many different design tools, such as Figma, Sketch, Adobe XD. I basically just tried all of them, because I know different companies use them. Even familiarizing yourself with the actual design tools that the company you're applying for also uses is really good. So definitely do that, and it can make you stand out as well in your career. You go to the next one. The next thing is to get comfortable with rejection. I had an Excel spreadsheet with all the different companies that rejected me, the companies that ignored me, and that's very common, unfortunately. However, at the same time, I would also recommend that you not only get comfortable with it, but you also figure out exactly what the reason why is you being rejected. And I would do that by looking back at my portfolio, or even asking for feedback from people. The next one is networking, and I absolutely hate networking. I'm not a fan of it, to be honest. But I recommend you guys attend networking events. I went to networking events from Islamic Makers, Somalis in Tech, as well as the Dean Developers events as well, and I met some really cool people. And then finally, one more, I just recommend you document everything. I kept a personal diary from the moment I graduated my midwifery degree until the moment I got my first role in UX, and it was genuinely amazing. At the time, it was quite stressful. However, now when I look back on it, I can actually see the journey that I undertook to actually get where I am today, and it's a really nice reminder to actually remember that. So I recommend that. So if you go to the next slide, you might have to press it twice, this one. One more. Yeah, so this is a message for anyone who's interested in transitioning careers. So if you do it 3 times. I recommend you view your career as a transition rather than a fresh start. You're not completely starting all over again. And then also to remember the skills and knowledge that you gained from your old profession to your current profession. Midwifery and UX design couldn't be polar opposites, but I found a link in the word empathy. In UX design, I went from being an advocate for in midwifery, I went from being an advocate for women who are giving birth, and then in UX design, I became an advocate for the user. And lastly is to lean into those skills, as nobody has the unique experience that you have today. And that's it. If you go to the next slide. Thank you very much for everyone who's listened to my talk today. I really appreciate it. And yeah, that's it.